understand what independent happiness is. This is something that allows me to be happy in such a way that it doesn't matter if the local restaurant closes, it doesn't matter if I lose my house or my job, it doesn't matter if my friends move away, and many, many other things. We don't want these things to happen, but independent happiness is something that I have some control over. I have some self-control. So, how does that happen? Or what makes it happen? Well, in a way it has to do with things in the world. For example, I'm a meditation teacher. I need a place to do meditation. Hopefully in bad weather with a roof over my head and some heating on. I need clothing like everyone else. I need a place to sit for my meditation. I need food so that I am strong enough physically so I can sit for meditation and so my mind is working also. So independent happiness doesn't mean I'm away from the world and I don't care. There is an old yogic saying, be in the world but not of it. And this has to do, I guess, with detachment. And that's okay as long as we don't take it too far. We are in the world, but we have to realize that there is a greater goal beyond the responsibilities that we all do have in the world. And the joy and the fun we have with our friends and cultural events and sports and things like that. But independent happiness has to do with the mind and how we use the mind and how we direct the mind. I gave the story a moment ago about the beggar and the king. Another story helps me, and perhaps you, to understand a little more also about how the mind works. And again, I believe this is just a story. In this story, there's a woman farmer, and one day in the morning she's out in the front of her farm doing some weeding or something along the road. She's in the countryside, and this happened in the old days. And one man in the mid-morning comes by on a horse, and he stops when he sees her and says, "Pardon me, ma'am, can you tell me how far is the next town?" And she looks at him and feels something from him, and she says, "Yes, the next town is about 4 miles down the road." He says, "Oh, good, thank you." And then he stops for a moment, and she can tell from the way he's dressed and what he's carrying that he's probably a salesman. And then he says, "By the way, ma'am, can you tell me, what are the people like in this town up the road?" And she looks at him again and says, "Well, what were the people like in the town you just came from?" He says, "People there, they weren't very cooperative, weren't very helpful, weren't very friendly at all. I hardly got to know anyone there very well at all." And she says, "Well, I'm afraid you'll find that the next town is the same way." He says, "Well, that's just what I was afraid of. Thank you." And then he goes on. Later in the day, sometime in the afternoon, another man comes by again on a horse, stops again and asks her where the next town is, and she again tells the same answer. And he also asks her, "By the way, ma'am, what do you think the people are like in the next town?" And again she asks him, after looking at him, after studying him a bit, she says, "Well, what were the people like in the last town you went to?" And he said, "Oh, they were very nice people, very cooperative, very helpful. I made a lot of friends. I look forward to going back there again." And she says, "I think you'll find the same thing in the town you're going to." So, life, to some degree, perhaps to a large degree, has to do with our attitude toward life, with our motivation in life. So, independent happiness, back to that point. How do I get this independent happiness? How do I find happiness that will always be with me? And to answer my friend Melissa, who said when I was very young in meditation that it would be so boring if I was happy all the time, the happiness of this independent happiness that I'm talking about is not based on the material things of the world, the things which come and go, the things which may be good and joyful, but they are temporary. And just to emphasize the point, I'm never saying give up everything in the world. Don't read, don't go to the movies, don't go to sporting events, don't go camping, don't go to the restaurants, etc. I'll never say that, but we have to put things in their place. So, to answer my friend Melissa, that happiness will not be boring if it's based on some very cosmic, very universal perception, or idea, or understanding. If I can understand my real nature, my real spiritual nature, as well as understanding who I am as a human being, where I fit in, what I should be doing. But if I can understand my real spiritual nature, then I can have that happiness all the time. So the point then is, how do I find that type of ultimate or independent happiness? Well, several times I've said tonight, I haven't said these words exactly, but basically it's all in the mind. You've probably heard that saying before, but probably people who say it are kind of putting you down or trying to get rid of you. Oh, it's all in the mind. But actually, in a way, life is all in the mind. I often quote Shakespeare. One of his sayings is, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I don't take that literally, absolutely. I don't think of it as a scientific fact. But there is some truth in that. The way we look at the world is a lot how the world appears. To someone, this shop is a nice place to come on a Thursday and hear an interesting lecture, and also be a little bit warm if it's cold outside. To someone else, this shop might be, oh, Mom and Dad come here and they look at books all afternoon and I'm bored stiff. And to someone else, this shop might be a place where, oh, I can get a job here and make a living and eventually buy a house. So 3 different people looking at the same physical space, but with different motivations, different attitudes. Now, ultimate happiness, independent happiness, I think, will be something that gives us all the same attitude. Maybe not exactly the same attitude, because we do come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, different educational levels, things like that. So if I were confronted with the ultimate and I'm in a state of ecstasy, you would probably also be in that state of ecstasy. But given your background being different than mine, you might interpret things in a different way. If someone is religious, that state of ecstasy may give them a vision of a certain master or guru or teacher from their tradition. If someone's not religious, maybe that ecstasy will just give them some impersonal type of joy. I don't know. But the point here then is, how do I get to that independent happiness or that ultimate happiness? How can I live, as my guru said, a state so that I know that that limitless thirst I have is being fulfilled? So if I do have this limitless thirst, and I believe I do, in the mind, as the beggar was showing to the king, I believe there is also a way to fulfill that. What I need to do is direct my mind in a way so that I can remind myself, or using another term, so that I can identify with that ultimate happiness, with that peace that goes beyond understanding. So, is there a way to do that? Well, I believe there is, but we have to use perhaps a different layer of our mind, a different level of our mind than we normally do. According to Tantric theory, there are 5 different distinct layers of the human mind, and I won't go into all of these right now, but we primarily live, of course, on the conscious level, which is a place of rationality. I know the price of this book is so much. I know that I stand here for the camera. I know that my clothing is a certain color, that my dinner's in the refrigerator, that my weekly salary is so much. That's the level of mind that we normally live on, and that's pretty important if we're living in the world. But as I'm saying, it doesn't satisfy all of our desires. So there must be a way, and I know there is a way, that we can identify with that higher power, with that higher understanding, what I might also call love, because I believe that love, which simply is an attractive force, is perhaps the key to identifying with, to remembering, to seeing and feeling and living with this ultimate happiness. But it's not just theory. It's not just that I talk and you read a book and then you read another book and you go to another lecture. These things aren't bad, but they, again, probably only strike you on, shall we say, a rational or conscious level. There is what we call a superconscious mind, which helps us to identify with and to live with and to be with this ultimate happiness, this higher level of consciousness. And the way that I know to get there is through meditation. Oh yes, meditation. Yeah. So, meditation, briefly, I talked about it very briefly in the beginning, but a simple definition of meditation is concentrated thought. A definition that applies to a higher level of meditation is an unbroken stream of thought, or we might say an unbroken flow of thought. Of course, the question here is, what am I meditating on? What am I thinking about? Now, concentrated thought. I've been using this definition, which comes from my teacher, for a long time, and for a long time I was thinking, oh, concentrated, isn't that something like this? I'm concentrating on the books, I'm concentrating on my studies, something like that. And then I realized, and I think this is an important point, that if we break down the word concentration, we come to the same root as concentric, toward the center or with the center. So we all know, I think, what concentric circles are. I have a circle out here, then I have another circle in here, and then another circle in here, and another circle in here, and on and on. And finally, if I draw enough of these concentric circles going inward, I come to one. And that's what our mind comes to with meditation, with this concentrated thought. Instead of the mind being out there, oh, I've got to go to Watkins bookstore tonight, I've got to meet my friend for dinner, I've got to wash my clothes, all important things, but these thoughts are a little bit, they can come any time. During my meditation, I want my mind to get focused on one simple thought. Maybe not a simple thought, but on one clear thought. And this is what meditation is about. Now, in the way that I teach meditation and practice, the basis of the meditation is a mantra. Can I ask, not having anyone be standing out, but can I ask who is familiar with the idea of a mantra, even if you've never used a mantra? Okay. So a mantra is, in simple language, a word or a thought that we meditate on to reach a certain goal. Now, the goal may be that I want to be the richest man in England, or I want to be the best football player in England, or the goal may be that I want what I've talked about all evening, unlimited happiness. Unending happiness. So that's obviously the goal we want, and we use the mind for this, of course. We use a mantra so that we can remind ourselves or identify ourselves with that higher goal. Seeing is believing in a way. We do believe certain things, whether they're true or not. I read some time ago, and some of you, especially if you are in psychology, may know more about this than I do, but I read that if I put a smile on my face, then no matter how sad, depressed, whatever that I am, if I keep that smile on my face for a while, I'll become happy. You might try that sometime when you are depressed. Just remember what I said and put a smile on your face. You've just had an argument, you've just lost your job, it's cold outside and you're outside without your jacket because you forgot it and you lost your key to your house. Pretty depressed. Put a smile on your face and see if it does change your mind. In a way, that's how meditation works. And I don't know if this is a trick or a difference from the example I'm just giving, but meditation works so that we meditate on something which is real. It's not so tangible or rational. It's an idea. It's an idea that gives us some sense of what our ultimate goal is. And in this way, our mind can be, dare I say, reprogrammed. Perhaps our mind can be attuned, that might be a better way of saying it, to a higher level of consciousness. So should we do a little bit of meditation? We only have a few minutes. And what I'll do, should have done this a little bit ago, but if I can hand out these cards, take one card, maybe you can pass them over there. I hope there's enough. If not, maybe you can share with each other. And while people are getting the cards, I'll explain this mantra. This is a universal mantra which my teacher developed. It's from the Sanskrit language. And the three words, it's on the lighter side of the card. The orange side is more just for information. But these three words are Baba Nam Kevalam. Baba means beloved in Sanskrit, Nam means name, and Kevalam means only. So if I take those three words in reverse in English, only name beloved. And a good translation for this mantra is only the name of the most beloved. It's something to think about while you're meditating. This is not a personal meditation mantra. If one is interested, at some point you can contact me and I'll pass around a sheet where you can give your name and email if you want. One can learn a personal meditation practice, which is always free, where you do gain or you do learn a personal meditation mantra, which you don't share with others. And this, depending on which level you're at, can be a very deep way of finding whatever we call it, inner peace, enlightenment, samadhi, take your pick. So we're just going to have a few minutes of this, but what I'd like you to do, and you can of course do this at home, keep the card. Anytime you're at home or in a library or any quiet place, just close your eyes, sit comfortably on a chair, on the floor, whatever, and just repeat this mantra for a few minutes or for a longer time if you can. So let's close our eyes now. I'll join you by sitting down here for a moment. Then we'll do this for a few minutes, then we'll have some Q&A time. So just keep in your mind, you don't have to worry much about the meaning, that should be in the back of your mind. But just let's close our eyes. And just in your mind, doesn't have to be rapid fire, but just in your mind, keep repeating the words Baba Nam Kevalam. If you forget them, you can cheat a little bit and open your eyes and look at the card. But let's just sit for a few minutes then with the mantra Baba Nam Kevalam. It manifests without planning. It's kind of like, I often use the example of falling in love. Many of you, I suppose, are married or you have partners. You can wake up in the morning and say, I'll be at work at 9 o'clock, I'll have lunch at 1 o'clock, I'll meet my friends at 6 o'clock. You can plan these things. But if you then add it to your schedule, and at 8 p.m. I'm going to fall in love, I don't know with who, but I'll fall in love. You're not going to fall in love. It has to happen spontaneously. You can prepare for it by many things that you do in life, but you can't predict it. And the same with bliss. I've had times where I'm just, one time in Denmark, I remember, this will be a short answer now, I hope, I was in a very frustrated state of mind just because of how things were going that day. And I was with some friends. We sat down by a riverbank. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go back to our house and do some simple meditation, have some lunch, go on with the day. But they said, no, we'll go sit here. And I sat down by the bank, completely frustrated. I don't want to be here. I closed my eyes. 5 seconds later, I was in some state of ecstasy, which I don't know why. So the experience can't be planned. You can prepare for it. Doing meditation is a way to prepare for it. Being involved in social service, leading a healthy life, but you can't plan on it. Yeah. Okay, I think according to Tantra philosophy, as interpreted by my guru, his name is Anandamurti. He lived in India in the 20th century. He says the essential quality of human beings is to find happiness or to be happy. And does that make sense? Now, happiness means different things to different people. Someone on the street here, there's a lot of pubs and clubs, and people may go there on a Friday night or any night, any daytime either, also, and they'll maybe drink a little bit, and that will make them happy. And they'll be happy for a little bit of time. Someone may love going to the restaurant. Perhaps their favorite restaurant has a really good chef, and every time they go there, once a week, twice a week, whatever, they feel happy. They bring their family, they bring guests, friends, and they feel happy. And that's not bad, but that happiness will last a little while. It won't last forever. And of course, we can give many other examples of these types of happiness, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But according to yoga theory, Tantra theory, I should say, what we want is an unlimited happiness. My guru, one thing he says is that infinite happiness is bliss. Now today, out of curiosity, I looked up the definition of the word bliss in an online dictionary, and it wasn't just happiness, but it was like a perfect happiness, a perfect contentment that is always there, some words like that. And then I realized that just that's what my guru meant when he talked about infinite happiness. If we can always be happy, how would that make our life? Now, when I was very young in meditation, I was just starting meditation. I knew approximately that much, or approximately that much, zero, about the philosophy or the ideas of meditation. But I had this soundbite, something like what I just said. I had that in my mind. And I was talking to a friend, and I described to her that what I just said, that with meditation you can be happy all the time. And I thought she would then say, oh, yes, that's very good. I think I'll try it. But what she said was, wouldn't that be boring to be happy all the time? Well, it depends what your happiness is based on. If your happiness is based on going to the pub, or going to your favorite restaurant, or going to the theater at on the West End, or reading a book from Watkins, which there's many good books here, but maybe they won't keep you happy forever. Eventually you'll finish all the books, or you'll pass away first.